go straight to the first question, ma'am, which is we have heard all the announcements. Briefly, what was the rationale and the big picture while you were thinking of these announcements and the announcements that have taken so far?
Thank you, Nalin. Thank you, BJP, for having me. Namaskar to all of them, all participants who are joining in today. Once the lockdown was inevitable and the Prime Minister made a first call for one-day Janata lockdown, Janata curfew as he called it, and almost a week later was when the actual lockdown commenced. So when the lockdown was becoming inevitable and it was going to be brought in, we had started working on how we can at best touch all those who will be very much in need of help. And one guiding philosophy was, because of this disruption, there should not be anyone because of this disruption, we didn't want anyone going hungry. And therefore, the PM Garib Kalyan Yojana, or it's not a Yojana, it's a package which came up, wherein very clearly the emphasis was laid on grains distribution, dry ration basically, and also making sure that households should not suffer in search of cooking fuel. So cooking gas distribution was also made a part of it, and some initial household expenditure, direct transfer also made a part of this package. Over and above this, we wanted to ensure that the old, the senior citizens, the young, and the widows should be given some kind of assistance. So 1,500 rupees were also given for them, which subsequently got elaborated, continuing this emphasis in that even in the 5-day package that we announced, there was a component whereby grains and pulses distribution was extended for another 2 months. So the larger principle was, one, first of all, attend to the poor and the most needy. Then also look at various ways in which people who will be now staying at home and not working to be able to draw on the money which is theirs, of course, which is kept in the EPF, for them to draw some of the money from that EPF account. But when we came to the further 5-day package, these principles being kept intact, we also wanted to make sure that restart is given the emphasis. So that when actually the lockdown gets lifted, or prior to that, even as the exemptions are coming in place, that relaxations were being offered, for the relaxation and based on the relaxation, when companies will have to start their production, they should be able to have some money to buy raw materials, to pay the fixed costs, and so on. And simultaneously with the together, every time some expectations were there about payment problems, moratorium issuing, extension of moratorium, we have been working together with the RBI also. So restart, some cash in their hands, liquidity into the economy were all dominant in the second. In the first, ensuring that nobody goes hungry, which continued into the second also. And one last point on the 5-day package was, as Prime Minister very clearly said, we are now looking at having an Atmanirbhar Bharat post-coronavirus. We will have to put our energies to build a self-reliant India. Emphasis on bringing in long-pending reforms were taken up. And several of these announcements also therefore got interwoven into the packages.
And that really leads on to, ma'am, the second question that I have is that some people are questioning the size of the fiscal stimulus as being too small, too little. Even though, if we look at the entire economic package, which also includes the liquidity and the credit factor as also reforms, is about 20 lakh crores and about 10% of GDP. So do you agree with that critique on the fiscal aspect or the stimulus being too little?
Nalin, it's a very important question. And in anticipation of coming out clearly on where we are placing our emphasis, we have emphasized on, even during the announcement of the package, clearly laying out what is it that we are accounting for. And before doing this, we had compared every announcement which has been made by very different countries before us and went through to see what their package consisted of. Was it only fiscal? Was it monetary? Was it anything else? All that has been studied. And at no point in time we should, and I'm saying it before us, at no point in time we should be confused about this, because every country has brought in a basket of measures, some fiscal, some monetary, some guarantees, some Reserve Bank liquidity, central bank liquidity, and so on. So, first of all, to think that all other countries have come up with very clearly only outgoes from the budget, and not as though they have underplayed everything else that they've done. On the contrary, they've also gone into liquidity being infused, both through the central bank and also through their own guarantee and other things. We are not at all different from them. One, the proportion might vary. Two, when developed countries have certain institutions, it's possible for them to go through one route and play less on the other route. India has a great advantage in terms of technology, transfer of cash and other things are possible. And that's how even in the PM Garib Kalyan, we could straight away infuse cash into the hands of people through their Jan Dhan accounts. So here, very clearly, we have come with measures which will get more liquidity into the economy. If more liquidity goes into the economy, people will get money in their hands, and that will kickstart the economy, kickstart with more demand and so on. So if you're going to bear it out as though I have not disclosed it, that itself shows me or indicates to me that the intent is not so much to understand, but to pick holes on the whole thing. I've laid it bare, saying this is how we've arrived at our 20 lakhs. And therefore, having heard everybody, our approach has been to go through this route of stimulating the economy through companies, institutions, enterprises, and businesses all getting assistance via bank or any other formulation through which businesses will start. So if there is an explaining done by somebody, no, this is only that is this much, this is not so much, they are at their liberty to do it. We've heard everybody and taken a position and come up with this package.
But Finance Minister, there are a few concerns because it appears that significant sectors have not been addressed or they seem to have been left out. Let me give a few examples. Let's take automobiles, where demand is virtually not there. Let's take in the lockdown what's happened in the service sector, whether it's tourism, hotels, hospitality, and they pay very large, they pay train staff, salaries are going, they have overheads. They are in a bad state currently. We look at retail, barring essentials, retail has suffered. And then if we look at another field, which is say events, entertainment, artists, they have taken a beating and their outlook looks bleak. So are there any plans for such sectors that so far appear not to have been addressed?
Nalin, that approach has a bit of a problem. We have taken this approach, and when we announced the scheme, we have not taken any one sector, if you notice. except when we're talking about reform, I would have spoken about agriculture, except when I'm talking about infusion of life for power sector, which is undergoing reforms. Other than that, I have not come up with any sectoral references. When what has now become to be called as MSME package, it includes MSME and also aims at touching others too. It is based on an understanding that any enterprise with a certain exposure to the bank and with a certain invested capital or with a certain turnover, if they need additional term loan, additional working capital, in order to buy their raw material to restart, in order to be able to pay some fixed cost, we've taken that route. And in fact, even yesterday when I had a meeting with all the bank's chairman and the managing directors, executive directors, I had clearly explained it to them that this has got to be automatically provided to everybody. We are not giving it to the MSME at the exclusion of others. Anyone who wants to get some assistance from the bank are very welcome to go, and I've made this plain to the banks also. So from 1st June, I expect liquidity to flow, credits to be enhanced, term loans to be given additionally without any new collateral. So the sectors that you're referring to can also benefit through this, can also approach the banks and seek this. And this has been made very plain to the banks. And therefore, we've not aimed at any one sector in particular, nor have we excluded anybody from this.
Thank you, Finance Minister, for that clarification. And I think that was very important. And since, Finance Minister, you have referred to the banks, and this has been coming out in your various interviews also, that instructions are to the banks that they must disperse loans. But the past track record has been, to some extent, a reluctance on the parts of banks and financial institutions for several reasons, and I'll spell out a few. One is the obvious fear of NPAs or non-performing assets. The second is the fear that investigations for even loans that have genuinely gone wrong for bona fide reasons gives the officials a fear of investigation. And a third is a related line, which is that SIDBI, as an agency that refinances or refunds the bank's amount, they don't adhere to a fixed timeline. So banks also are worried about their balance sheets and their entire creditworthiness. So when you are interacting with the banks and their top management, is this message also going that do not worry about this? Are these concerns being addressed, ma'am?
Absolutely. And you've raised a very important issue, and I definitely would like to give it a bit of an elaborate answer. All the 3 points that you raised as concerns which banks have had in their minds earlier and may have even now are absolutely well-founded. In fact, through my last 7-8 months, I've spent at least 3 different times with the banks to say the fear of the 3 C's, as they refer to it, the CBI, CVC, and also the CAG, should not be in their minds. And at one point in time, I had the CBI director and 2 joint directors who deal with these matters come and sit. And those days it wasn't social distancing, so all the bank officials had come. We sat in one large room and discussed threadbare as to where this fear comes from. And subsequently, we also came back to remove from circulation and also withdraw some of the orders which the Department of Financial Services had issued, thereby giving some confusing messages. So as regards the 3 C's, based on which they were very scared, we have withdrawn the notifications which may have caused some fear. Also formed a CVC Vigilance Vetting Committee. It's not CVC, it's so much a Vigilance Vetting Committee headed by an eminent person who, before the cases from the bank go to the RBI, would vet the cases to see if there's a vigilance angle. If there is no vigilance angle, it shall not be sent to the CBI or to the RBI. It would go back to the bank saying, enough of CBI references, you can take a departmental action and finish it off there. So that step is also being taken by us. Second point about what if commercial decisions taken by the banks faced with a difficulty when the decision goes foul because of a commercial failure, a genuine commercial failure. Even on that, we have made sure that banks are sure that if you take a decision and that goes bad, and if there's no mala fide, we shall not do anything, and you can please go ahead. This was an assurance given some time back before the budget of February this year, 2020. But now, yesterday, I have reiterated that by saying, if a decision goes wrong and if there is a loss, if government has given 100% guarantee now, it is not going to be on that individual officer, nor is it going to be on the bank, and therefore, without fear, they should take this automatic route, in the sense everybody is eligible for additional term loan and additional working capital, unless the client himself says, no, I don't want it, I'm okay, you may go ahead doing it with others. So that is the second. And the third is about how risk, am I right? Am I remembering
yes,
right?
SIDBI and refinancing. Because
SIDBI and the refinancing. Yesterday, they were also present. In fact, I'm setting fairly short intervals for them to come up with result-based, performance. I shall be monitoring them on a weekly basis, I've told them, and they should therefore speed up. This alert was given to them even as we were just about announced the 5-day package, and therefore work has already commenced. They're already moving. Like the NABARD has already gone ahead issuing monies to the farmers, which was also one of the big announcements made. So in a way, I think on all these 3 points, we have tied the loose ends. Now it's a question of me monitoring to execute it in time.
It's heartening, Finance Minister, to know about that. And even more importantly, that there is a follow-up mechanism that you have referred to in terms of the follow-up to see that things are happening as per the direction of the government. Which I'd like to please track with your permission is yesterday, the Reserve Bank of India governor has highlighted a widespread concern, which is the contraction of demand. Now, when can we see steps to address this factor? And given the fiscal challenges that everyone accepts, how would we get money literally in the hands of the consumers?
This 5-day package obviously has been done in consultation with a whole lot of economists who met the Prime Minister, who sent letters to me, who, after the Prime Minister's consultation, the PMO sent the input back to me, and also very many academicians, ex-bankers, ex-finance secretaries, and people like that, not exactly finance secretary, ex-finance ministry officials, and so on. So, and industry themselves. So the package itself was designed keeping in mind that we are facing a situation which is exceptional, and therefore whether the contraction is going to be this much or that much, we didn't have the luxury of data to be even guess estimating them. As a result, and also because there've never been a situation like this before, it was difficult for us to even think that it may go this way or that way. However, the spirit of that thought has been kept in mind, that we have to now look at complete contraction, and if we have to stimulate the economy, keeping that in mind, what is it that we have to do and how is it that we have to do? And after all, we are only the second month of this financial year. So the contraction, I need to bring in something which happened between last night and this morning as regards the Bank of England. You know that even the package which was announced by the Chancellor of Exchequer in UK was one of those big things. Everybody quoted it to us, saying, hey, my God, look at this. This is the way stimulus should be given. What amount has been given? Maybe so. I'm not criticizing or questioning that. But yesterday, or probably late last night, the Bank of England and their our equivalent of the Governor Reserve Bank is one Mr. Bailey, who has given a statement saying the last quarter contraction might be to the extent of minus 35%. And the whole year might end up in minus 15%. For an economy for which the stimulus package and its size was something which all of us were shown and said, look, if they can go this far, you shouldn't hesitate. Point taken. It's said in good spirit, I appreciate that. But today the central bank, the Bank of England statement about them also says that stimulus was announced well before ours was announced. All of our calendar as regard coronavirus is comparable. And if after that I have the central bank telling, UK central bank saying this, the long and short of what I want to convey is there a realistic assessment anyone can make at this time? No. No one can, because we don't know where this pandemic is going. We do not know when it is really going to retreat in full. At the same time, we have confidence in our entrepreneurs, because even with the relaxations, many of them have started coming in to do business. So I would only pay a lot of weight to that development and see as we go what further they want us to do. So it will be too early for me to assess. At the same time, too early for me to think that nothing is going to change. I'm sure the Indian entrepreneurs are also going to come out after they test the waters post the lockdown. We'll have to see how it goes as we go along.
That's an important piece